All right, let's talk about taming the absolute chaos that our local development environments can become. We're going to dive deep into a feature in Docker Desktop that is super powerful, but you might not even know it's there. I'm talking about Docker extensions. You know the drill, right? You've got your code editor open, 3 different terminal windows running, maybe a separate database client over here. It's a mess. What if you could just bring all of that together under one single roof? Well, that's exactly the big idea behind Docker extensions. It's all about taking those essential third-party tools and plugging them directly into the Docker desktop interface that you're probably already using every single day. So, how does this magic actually work? Let's zoom out and get the big picture on what Docker extensions really are. The simplest way to put it is this. An extension is basically a plugin for Docker Desktop. It connects the world of managing your containers with all the other tools you need to actually get your job done, creating one smooth, connected workflow. You know, the best analogy is to think of it like an app store, but for your dev environment. Seriously. Just like you'd add an extension to your browser or VS Code to give it new superpowers, you can add an extension to Docker Desktop to do things like manage a database, monitor logs, or even spin up an entire application stack. And the benefits here are huge. This isn't just about adding a cool new feature for yourself. It's about setting up a standard way of working for your entire team. You can pull in the tools you already know and love. And this is the real game changer. You can package up your own internal tools as an extension and share it with millions of other developers out there. How cool is that? And if you're thinking, hey, I want to build one of these, you're in luck. You're not starting from zero. Docker gives you this really powerful SDK so you can use web technologies you already know, like React and TypeScript. It even comes with things like hot reloading and pre-built UI themes to make development super fast and honestly kind of fun. Okay, theory is one thing, but let's see this stuff in action. We're going to look at a fantastic, real-world example that shows just how powerful this concept can be, the Penpot Docker Extension. So first, if you haven't heard of it, Penpot is this amazing open-source design and prototyping tool. You can think of it as an alternative to something like Figma, but the key difference is you can host it all yourself. It's incredibly powerful, especially for teams who want to have total control over their design assets and data. Now, setting up an application like Penpot isn't trivial. You've got a front end, a back end, a database, a cache, a whole bunch of moving parts. But the Penpot Docker extension, it just simplifies all of that. It takes that whole complicated setup and boils it down to a single clip right inside Docker Desktop. So what does that one-click experience actually look like? Let's take a quick tour of the interface. And there it is. This is your command center, living right inside Docker Desktop. You get this beautiful at-a-glance overview of the entire application. You can see right away 6 of 6 services running. You've got your main controls to start or stop the whole thing, and a clear list of every single service. This is your mission control for Penpot. Everything you need is literally at your fingertips. Deployment? One click. You're getting real-time status updates. What if you just need to restart the database service? No problem. You can do that right here. And check out the quick access links. No more trying to remember which port number you need to open the UI or the email testing tool. It's just there. The UI also gives you really clear feedback on the health of each little part of the application. So running is good, but healthy is even better. That means the service's own internal health checks are all passing. And if something goes wrong and a service becomes unhealthy, you know exactly where to start looking. All right, so for all of you who are curious about how this whole thing is put together, let's pop the hood for a second and see what's going on underneath. The architecture is actually really elegant and simple. You can think of it in 3 layers. First, you have the user interface, that dashboard we just saw, which is built with modern tech like React. That UI talks to a backend API, which is written in Go, and that's the part that does all the heavy lifting, like talking to the Docker engine. And finally, that backend manages the actual Penpot services themselves, which are all just defined in a standard Docker Compose file. And if we look at the project's tech stack, you can see that 3-layer split pretty clearly. The front end is almost all TypeScript, and the back end is powered by Go. That's a super common and really powerful combo for building this kind of developer tooling. The file structure itself is going to look really familiar to anyone who's worked on a modern web project. You've got your Docker file, your UI code, but there's one really critical file here, metadata.json. That's the manifest. It's the file that tells Docker Desktop everything it needs to know to load up your extension, from its name all the way to its icon. Okay, so you've seen what it is, you've seen how it works. Now for the fun part. How can you get your hands on this and try it out for yourself? It is ridiculously easy. Seriously. You just clone the repo from GitHub. Then, from the project folder, you run two simple commands that are already set up for you. Make build extension, and then make install extension. That's it. The Penpot extension will just pop up in your Docker desktop dashboard, ready to go. Just a quick heads up on what you'll need. Make sure you have a recent version of Docker Desktop, give it at least 4 gigs of RAM to play with, and just make sure a couple of specific ports are free on your machine. With that, you are all set. So think about it. We've just seen how a Docker extension can take a really complex multi-service application like Penpot and make deploying and managing it almost laughably simple, all from a great-looking UI inside a tool we already use. This is so much more than just convenience. It's about fundamentally taming complexity. And that really leaves us with one final exciting question to think about. What part of your workflow is a little too complicated? What will you build?